Hey guys, it's Gary. I'm really not going to talk a lot about music here. I've kind of gotten out of doing videos lately, and I intend to start again. Um, Hopefully shorter than what I've done in the past. Um, and I've been going through several phases of listening to things, and I keep thinking to myself I should do a video about that. Um, and I just haven't gotten it together to do it. Um, Honestly, I don't know. In the last couple months, I think I've only done 2 live videos. I've been posting a lot of music up from my collection for the most part. For the most part, for my vinyl collection, but a few CDs of things that have been out of print for many years, so you really can't buy them except on the in the used marketplace. Um, Things that especially things that I like, things that I think should get exposure really. Um, and Get a lot of nice comments on them, from people that may have had these albums on vinyl years ago and don't have turntables anymore and don't have the vinyl anymore, and that makes me feel good. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at my most recent videos postings, more of them have been albums than have been my videos of me talking. Funny thing is, I got a bunch of subscribers. I still have less than 200 subscribers, so it's not a lot. But while I was posting these albums up, I got all of a sudden, a bump up of subscribers, just a few at a time. But for me, that's a lot. 2, 3 people a week, even, for a few weeks, and strictly while I was posting albums. And suddenly, when I put up my first video of me speaking, coming here live and talking, the first video that I had done in quite a while, for well over a month, I lost 10% of my subscribers. So people obviously don't want to see me. It's literally in one day I put up my first video of me speaking again. That was about music even. And I lost like 16 subscribers, which I had like 160 at that point. So that's like 10%. So I was thinking, gee, if I keep on making videos like this, I'll be down to 3 subscribers in no time. And I know there's probably about 3 people that will watch on a semi-regular basis at least. So I can be sure to at least have my core, quote unquote, core audience of maybe about 3 people. I have not been feeling it lately. I'm still listening to music, and I'm still passionate, and despite the fact that I'm not working, which is a big problem, and I have no income, I've still been picking up things here and there. So, my passion for listening to the music is still very much there, but the whole thing of being unemployed. I left my last job. It's been over 6 months ago now, and it's a little tough. I always kind of thought that I'm not. I could be happy being retired if I had the income. I know, when I left my job of 27 years, over 2 years ago, or exactly 2 years ago now, it's kind of like when you leave. I realize that the 27 years I worked there pretty much don't amount to anything. Whatever work I did was not something that is important to that company now, and there's nothing that I did there that's so great that it changed the course of anything. And it's a bit like Death of a Salesman, if anybody knows that story of that fiction story. But it's very true, when you stop doing things for any company on a day-to-day basis, the more time goes by, the really less important your contribution was. So I've never been, one of these people that think that, wow, I don't know what I'm saying here. Well, I know what I'm saying. I don't know how to verbalize it. That, I changed the course of anything, through that work. So as a result, I didn't really, get a great deal of satisfaction. It was a way to earn a living. I did my job the really best I could, for whatever the hell I was doing at the time. But, I'm not under any perception that it was really something that, changed anybody's life or was important. It was basically a way to earn a living. So that, when I do get my next job, whatever that is, I don't necessarily think that, I'll do what I've always done. I do it to the best of my ability. But I don't necessarily think I get a lot of, I don't let it boost my ego or I wouldn't say I get personal satisfaction when I do a decent job. But, I don't let it make myself, to be bigger than what I am, or, let it make me feel more important, simply because I have a job, because it really is just a way to earn a living. It's basically, you work, do your job to the best of your ability for your free time. It's your free time that you're getting to, and your hobbies and your interests and whatever, And the strange thing with me, and this has happened before, now that I've got, right now I'm looking for a job and I've got plenty of free time, and it's a bit tough. I'm spending 24/7 by myself, except for once a week when I go do my laundry. I'm on my own, and that's that gets to me a bit, to be honest. I didn't even in my last job, I didn't interface with people really. I sat at a computer, I did certain work, all my work out submitted by computer, talked to my boss maybe once a week, depending on what job I had at that point. But the last job I had for 7-8 years was, maybe I would talk to my boss once a week, sit at the computer, but still I was in an office and there's a whole bunch of other people there. And just the person sitting next to you might exchange some minor chats with on occasion, during the course of the day. And, that was good enough for me, but it was some back and forth with people, and sometimes just even running into somebody in the coffee room or something, But, it was never, I was never working in a group really of people that collaborated on stuff and worked together. It was all pretty much, work at your desk, go sit at your desk and do your job. And yet, when I went home at the end of the day, I was on my own, but for some reason, believe it or not, that was enough for me. That was enough contact for me, and I was fine. There was enough human contact there during the day, which I'm not getting any of now, for the most part. And so it's weird because I was unemployed once before, kind of for an extended period back in the early 1980s. That was, it's weird. It's almost like a replay of that because, I had no money coming in. I was kind of down. I was always on my own. But I noticed that now I was playing, and writing a little bit of music, back then as well. And I noticed that after a while, I just gave up with the music writing. And it was, again, it's the same situation I'm in now. I have the time. Got my, a lot of my instruments are right here in the room. They were out in the garage, but, when the cold weather started coming, I decided I'm going to pull out some of them. I have some big percussion things that I left in there. But I took out the keyboard and stuff like that because there's no heating in there and I can't work in there in the wintertime. And I didn't really have the space for it in here, but I made space right here in my room for the keyboard. The guitars are portable, so I've got them here. So one of them back there, actually two of them, but you can't see it. Right above Ron Carter there, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. My beautiful coffee painting of Ron Carter is hanging right there. That's what that little brown splotch is right there in the corner. And I've got the time to work on music, and I've been trying to, but I just can't get anything done. And the sad thing is I'm not in the right frame of mind. And what happens when I get a job? Well, first, getting a job is a big step now, because I've applied to a bunch of things. I've never even heard back from anybody. And that's kind of, the online thing is great. You can find tons of jobs every day, and I've been applying to, I'm only averaging about one a week, but, I have to find things that I think I'm capable of doing. But you never hear back from these people because there's 100+ people applying for every single position because they're online. And so, it's a bit of a catch-22, really, that I doubt in the past, when you had only newspapers to go by, that there were that many people applying for jobs. But now when you're online, it's just, thousands of people can see the job listings, even people that don't even live in the area. People that may be living completely on, 3,000 miles away but plan to move to this area might be applying for the same job you're applying for, with the anticipation of moving to this area type of thing. Whereas in the past, those jobs would be hard to find out about because you weren't in the area to pick up a local newspaper type of thing. I've had a few days here and there where I had a short burst of inspiration, and then when I realized how long it takes to set up any instrument that you're trying to record, whether it's a guitar, and you got to plug it into this and go find an outlet for that, I would think about it, and it's so much work to do the setup that I would never do it. I just never got to it because, like the news is coming on TV and I'm going to watch the news instead type of thing. And I had a few days when I actually, managed to get the instruments plugged in, and I recorded, but I'm talking about, once everything was set up and going, I recorded for about 5 minutes, and it was more of a real basic thing. Let me just put this down, and see if I can build on it type of thing. And it's a shame because I could be getting so much done, but I start it and I'm like, well, what the hell is this for? I begin to think, which is crazy because there's nothing preventing me from releasing the music once it's done. But yet I can't concentrate on that. It's like when you have a job, you go to a job, you do your work, you get off work, now the time's your own, and you can concentrate on what you're doing. And I can't because I'm always thinking, well, I shouldn't be doing this now. I should be looking for a job. So, my concentration stinks. And that's the thing that I have a big problem with. Is my concentration, because the hardest thing for me to do is to record and play music. For me, it requires a level of concentration, probably that's higher than anything else I do. Certainly anything else I do in my free time. Maybe if you're working a job and you've got to learn a new procedure to do something or something like that, you're very focused and concentrated. But you do it because you have to learn it in order to keep your job type of thing, and you concentrate and everything else goes out of your mind at the moment. But when I'm home recording music, that same kind of concentration doesn't come that easily when, the things get in your head like, oh, why are you wasting time doing this when you should be looking for a job kind of thing. And I'm actually not helped by the fact that when I started my job that I stayed at for 27 years, it was, I started the job in 1988, and my brother-in-law and my sister were just getting married at that point. He was starting a new job at exactly the same time I did. He's a few years older than me, but we both were starting new jobs after leaving the previous jobs we had for several years. And and he was making a change. He went to go work for the post office, which to me seemed like silly because he had worked in banks his whole life. I couldn't believe that he would go work a post office job. But he looked at it simply as a money thing. He actually was making more money, believe it or not, starting working with the post office than after like 20 years of working in banks. But, you know, he gave up a lot. He gave up his Saturdays because he had to work Saturdays. But he looked at it simply as a kind of black and white issue. He was getting more money, he had better benefits, blah, blah, blah. I started a new job working an office position. And at the time, I really thought I got the better end of the deal. I thought I had the better job. But now I've completely changed because he's retiring in a few months. And, you know, they're not rubbing it in my face that I'm unemployed and he's retiring. They're just, you know, when I see my sister, you know, she talks about, you know, the paperwork that he's doing that he's got to fill out to retire, and, you know, how in a few months he's going to be retired and never work again type of thing. And, you know, here I am looking for a job. You know, I wouldn't feel as bad if I had a job and I was working and I was just, you know, continue to work. But, you know, I left a job for 27 years. He got a nice pension from the job, which is one of the reasons why he took the position. There's not too many jobs that have pensions anymore. Very few. Usually only government jobs, at least in this country. And I thought I was going to get a pension for my job, but then when I found out, I basically got rooked out of it through technicalities. Because the company that I started to work for in '88 got bought out by another company 2 or 3 years down the road. So I went, you know, so technically I still had the same start date of 1988 for my entire career there. Then a few years later, it got bought out by another company, and then it got bought out by another company. And so even though they always considered my years of service to the company that I worked for had started in 1988, when I was basically forced out of the job because they downsized my entire department and everybody that worked in my area. And they said, well, you'll get a pension because you worked for the company for X number of years, but they only took into account the last 3 or 4 years that I worked for the company or something like that. All those earlier 18, 19 years didn't count, so the pension ends up being nothing. You know, so, which I couldn't collect anyway till I was 65, but I get, supposedly I'll get about $50 a month, which is nothing, you know, and by the time I'm 65, it's going to be less than nothing. And after taxes, it's going to really be nothing, because they only counted the last few years that I worked there. They didn't count the previous 18, 19 years, or 20 years even. Just because these companies changed. So technically the first company I worked for, they don't count that toward my retirement. The second company I worked for, they don't count that toward retirement. The third company that, you know, had bought out, so they only counted the last company that did the buyout, you know. So basically, in their estimation, in their eyes, I had only really worked for the company for 4 or 5 years, when in fact I'd been there 27. So, you know, all this time I thought that there was a pension plan and I'd be making some kind of money. You know, once I hit 65, you don't collect it till you're 65. But then I found that it was, you know, nothing, because after taxes it is going to be nothing. So I don't even have that to back me up, you know, to hold out till I'm 65 to get. I don't know what's going to happen, you know, and just, you know, with my brother-in-law now, we started these jobs at the same time. He's got, you know, I would never go do what he's doing because I tried that, you know, and it's too late anyway. It's you know, his job at the post office is too physical for somebody who's pushing 60 to start doing, let me tell you. You know, so he's basically, his biggest concern, because he's got this nice pension coming in, he's got Social Security coming in a matter of months. He doesn't have to worry about, you know, he's not rich, but he doesn't have to worry about how to pay his bills ever. And, you know, my sister is close in age, and she's going to be able to retire, and she gets a a pension and Social Security from her job as well. And I'm kind of shit, you know. And just with them, you know, by comparison, you know, you can't help, you're human. By comparison, I can't help but compare my situation to theirs and be like, oh man, what am I going to do, you know? And unfortunately, there's a lot of bitching and ragging, you know. That's why I'm putting this down as a vlog and a not musical vlog, and that's the way it's going to go down. And you know, I don't want to do a separate channel for, you know, vlogs like this, because it's just, you know, I have such a small audience anyway, and it's just dividing things up all over the place, and creating another channel would just be a pain. So, you know, I'm taking a cue here from our buddy Ron Anderson. If most people that watch me probably watch Ron Anderson's videos as well. And, you know, I'm going to do, you know, my usual music talk, and I'm going to continue to post albums by other people up that are rare out of print things, but then I'm going to probably do this bitching and moaning vlog too. And, you know, that's not really a musical thing. And, I'm just going to do it to vent. I don't know. But, and, you know, maybe, you know, talk a bit about my music, you know, in these, you know, and, you know, if and when I do start to get a little more work done, on my own stuff, I'll talk about it here. I do have, I have a computer in the garage, which, you know, was there to record, because all my instruments were in the garage, and it very rarely gets booted up even, you know, unless I'm going to record. But I've got some pieces in there, in my garage, recorded onto my old hard disk recorder, which is still out there, which I'm not going to be using anymore because it's full. It's one of those things, you can't replace the hard disk. Hard disk wasn't even very big. I only have one album's worth of material on there, and it's filled up. And my only choice, since there's no way to hook up an external drive to it, my only choice if I wanted to continue to record onto this hard disk would be to erase my album that's on there, which means I would never be able to go back and remix it. And so I kind of wanted to leave the material in there. But I have a piece in there that I haven't released that was basically a 23-minute long piece that, let's say, didn't have I recorded it back at the end of 2011 and the beginning of 2012. And it's a long piece that doesn't do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. And that was its intent, was to have this long piece that's just kind of there. To a lot of people, it would sound like there's looping technology involved, and the music is playing the same thing over and over for a loop, but it's not. It's about 8 guitar parts, which would probably surprise you when you hear it. And they are all played completely through from beginning to end, for the 24 minutes. But it sounds like a looped thing, but I never, when I actually record my music that gets released, I never actually use loops. You know, I pretty much play things, from beginning to end. And I've been just recently dicking around a little bit with a loop, but it's just one of 16 parts in, you know, a piece that'll be going on. You know, now I'm thinking maybe there'll be one loop kind of in the background type of thing, but there'll be, you know, 15 other parts going on that are all me playing, type of thing. So I'm looking at that. But I have this one piece that I've been trying to get a mix of since 2012. You know, in April 2012, I put out that Impressions of a Year CD. And ever since then, I've had this piece that I've been listening to a rough mix of. And I've got this hard disk out in the garage, and I'm mixing it down to the computer that's out there because the hard disk is too heavy for me to bring in here. So thankfully, I've got a computer there that I can do the mix down to. And then once I get the mix down on there, I just put it on a tiny little zip drive. thought I had one here. And then I could bring it into here and, master it on this computer, what little needs to be done. But because there's like 8 guitar parts, and I have to play around with the volume on them because the volume changes on these 8 parts as the piece goes on. I have been trying to mix this thing now since 2012, and I can't get a good mix of it. I had a good mix once, but there was there's one mistake, one bad note on there, and I didn't, at that time that I did that mix, it was something for me to listen to, but I got this really good mix, but that note there has to kind of be deleted out. And what I do is you just turn down the faders for that one note, or you turn off that channel for that one note. You would never know that it was there. So for this one really bad bum note that's in there, I've had a perfect mix for it, but I've got to go back and remix the entire thing. And when you're mixing it, you have to do it live. There's no after the fact because it's not recorded in a computer. It's recorded on a hard disk. On a computer, you could take each individual track, and if there's a mistake on it, you could just do a little mouse click and get rid of the mistake or lower the volume there. On the hard disk, it's got to be mixed live. So it's a 24 minutes of very heavy, solid concentration, and a sheet of notes that I've got out there that's this long, about at the 13-minute point, fade track 2 down to volume level 3, and then bring it back up at the 14.5-minute point, stuff like that. There's tons of notes a page of notes that go into trying to get this piece mixed. Now, in the last 4 or 5 months, generally once a month, I've gone out to the garage, even in the wintertime when I was freezing my ass off. I've gone out to the garage to try to get this piece mixed, because it will, definitely come out. And my idea is to record other pieces to go on a CD with this long 24-minute piece. Whether or not it'll be the next one out, that was my goal, but I don't know. Because I've had this piece and I've liked this piece since day one, but obviously it wouldn't have fit on the last album. It was out of context with the last album. And I'm very aware of making an album, a CD, that is a coherent thing to listen to from beginning to end. Whether or not people ever listen from beginning to end, I have no power over that, but my thing is to make things that you put on and you listen to the whole thing, and things don't sound out of context or sound like like a record of here's a bunch of tracks I recorded, let me throw them together, because I probably have close to enough material already recorded to put out a full CD, maybe even more than a full CD. But these pieces, in my mind, don't belong together. They're for at least 3 different CDs. I've got 3 pieces that are meant to be the last piece on whatever CD they come on. I'm not going to throw them together on one CD. And things that I feel don't belong together, don't belong in the mix, because whether or not these pieces are written, I have a mental idea of what music should go on there, especially balancing acoustic and electronic stuff. As much as I like to listen to all electronic CDs and at times all acoustic CDs, for most of my stuff, not all of it, but for most of the things that I kind of envision a mixture of having both. And I'm, got some heavily electronic things that are done. And I want to balance them out with a bit more acoustic material and pieces that are acoustic in nature. So for once a month, for, 4 or 5 months, I went out and tried to get a mix. And every single time I thought I nailed it, finally, with this sheet of notes of change the volume on, track 16 at 4 minutes and 10 seconds and bring it back up at 4 minutes and 17 seconds. It's all and you have to do this live. So if you screw up, boom, stop, start all over again. because it's mixing down into the computer that's out there. All 5 times I thought I had the perfect mix, put it on a zip drive, bring it back here, come into this room, dump it into my stereo, play it, and find out that there's something there that can't be heard. Because it's a weird piece, guys. It doesn't change really much, but there's 8 things going on, and the weird thing is that all 8 are supposed to be in the background. So it's not kind of like here's a rhythm guitar and here's another rhythm guitar and here's a lead guitar, so lead guitar should be louder. There, the idea is that when you hear it, you can focus on whatever part you want to focus on. So in a way, they almost have to be mixed at equal volumes, or at least 7 out of the 8 pieces. 7 out of the 8 guitars that are on there, because there is one thing that kind of floats on top a little bit. But the idea being that you can hear all 7 of the other guitar things that are on there. And, they're supposed to be essentially very close to at equal volume levels, or at least so you can hear them. And the problem is every time I do a mix, I have one of the guitar parts that you can't hear. I heard it in the headphones, or I heard it on the speakers that I use to mix down with, because I've tried doing it both ways. I'll hear that part there, but then when I bring it back and I listen to the final mix, on open speakers and the way it would, more than likely sound on a CD, one of the parts are just mixed too low. So I got that one bum note out of there every time I've done a mix. But I've got I've got this part that it's like, you can't even hear that part is there. And that's a problem. It's a damn good thing I wasn't able to have even more guitars on there, because I only had 16 tracks to work with, and I filled all of them up. So that's part of my dilemma with that. So here I am bitching and ragging for over a half hour. For who the hell would want to watch this? I don't know. But I feel maybe that I owe a bit of an explanation of why I've been so out of the video thing. I've come so close on numerous occasions to starting the camera up and recording a video about what I've been listening to. And, talking a little bit about the artist, not to the extent that I used to, like not a 90-minute thing like I used to do. But, and it's just that, wow, it's so much effort to gather up the few facts that I have that I want to convey to whoever's watching about this artist that I'm currently listening to. And it just seems like it was this task that I just couldn't handle, unfortunately. It's just my frame of mind. So I'm not there yet, but I'm gonna start doing videos bitching and moaning like this probably too. I don't know. I'll label these as vlog videos so you can feel free to skip over them, and I'll probably lose another, I hope I don't lose another 10% of my audience by doing this video and putting it up. But I think there's a lot of people there's a handful of people that are used to seeing. There was a time when I was doing about 2 videos a week, and I averaged that for a long time. And, honestly, I had a friend who does watch my videos on, like one of those 3 or 4 regulars that I know is going to watch whatever I put out there. Who went away for a while, and there was no reason for me to do a video because he was one of my primary watchers. So I kind of got, out of the mode of doing it and into the funk that I'm in, and just, even when he came back and he was around, I just, I've been having a lot of trouble getting started up again. As a matter of fact, the only thing that really forced me to get back to do is 2 things that forced me to come back and make the last 2 videos. Otherwise, it would have been months since I've done a video. And one is the coffee painting, and the Wolfgang Downer CD that Diana in Germany sent me, which was wonderful, and it's a CD I'm still listening to, and reignited my whole thing of listening to Wolfgang Downer again. And I, wanted to thank her on video, so that was the first video that I had made in quite a while. And then, unfortunately, the second video that I made, after being offline for a long time, or at least not making videos, was when I found out that the drummer Michael DePasqua died. And because I liked him so much, I really wanted to do a video for people that, most people, unless you were a really, really hardcore ECM fan, probably wouldn't know Mike DePasqua, or might be, one of those guys that you had on an album, but you don't really take note, because he wasn't really, he played with Jan Garbarek for a couple albums, but he wasn't like a part of a band where, here's this body of work where he was the drummer for X band for X number of years. He played one album here, one album there, 2 albums with this guy, and so he was spread out all over the place. So even people that might have, and he unfortunately recorded less albums than I even thought he did. When I was kind of looking at his discography, I was certain that he had recorded more, and in fact, I think I had everything, or just about everything, that he had recorded. And yet I know he did a lot of tours, and he was very busy during this concentrated time of the starting about 78 into at least about 83 or so, which was his heavy period of musical involvement. And, when he did a lot of touring and most of his recording during that period. And, when I found that he didn't do, I thought there were a lot of recordings that I hadn't discovered that he had made, but it seems like I'm pretty much aware of all of them, 99% of them at least. And I realized, well, there's probably a lot of people, especially if you weren't around then, and into the ECM scene, which I was. And I always noted whether or not he was a drummer on a thing because I had met him once and I got to speak to him. So, there's not a lot of musicians that I listen to, that I admire, that I've gotten to speak to. So, as a result of that, I always made note of the fact that, that's Mike DePasqua on this album. I got to see him in New York City when he was touring and playing with Jan Garbarek in his quartet. And that would have been 82 or 83. So, it was a long time ago, but nice guy, But of course, when you meet them, I think, and you get to speak to somebody like that, you tend not to forget that. And so you do take note if you pick up an album and they're playing on it versus somebody who's playing you like, but you like hundreds of musicians, and, their main gig is as a sideman, not as a leader. So sometimes you don't take note of or remember that so-and-so, played on an album. So I'm rambling, and I'm going on for an unbelievable almost 40 minutes. So there's a personal update. No real music stuff involved. And I decided to do it after, once again, I also can't sleep at night. I can sleep fine during the day. I don't know why, and that makes things even worse. Every night I try to go to bed at a decent time, anywhere from 11 o'clock at night. I've tried even 10 o'clock at night to midnight. And what happens is I'm tired. I fall asleep, and thinking that this could be the night that I actually, get 7 or 8 hours of sleep. Doesn't matter if I wake up early. Doesn't matter. But, and then I fall asleep, and I fall asleep for maybe an hour. And the same thing happened tonight. I went to bed at 11, woke up with a start, looked at the clock. It was exactly 12 midnight. The clock had just hit 12 o'clock, almost like, I don't know, like I'd set an alarm for 12 o'clock or something. So now it's after 1:30 in the morning. And I know I'm going to be up till dawn because I'm wide awake. This thing I have is I fall asleep for an hour at the time that most people go to bed, and it's like a nap to me. And I start getting tired when the sun comes up, and that's just not, the way if I were retired, could care less. But my body clock always tended to go from the time I was like in my early 20s, and I also had a night job for a few years. Whenever I would get time off work, I would automatically be in this late night mode. Like I said, if you don't have to work for a living, it's not a bad thing. I would stay in that mode forever. Doesn't bother me to the least. I could find stores that are open to do my shopping in the middle of the night. But in this scenario where I should be looking for a job type of thing, I want to try to get into the mode of being like normal people, like most of the people that are my friends here in the VC, that are working during the day, and they come home in the evening and they go to sleep at night, and there's barely a soul who's awake now who's going to be the people that watch my videos, at least at the time that I'm recording this, with a couple rare exceptions. Because there's a couple people out there that do stay up late at nights on their days off, even though they work day jobs. So they're people like me, but that's pretty much the exception. All right, guys, I'm sorry to go on for so long, and I don't even know if anybody's watching this till the end. If I had a prize to give out for, I would, for anybody that sticks it out to the end. But I'm going to label this the vlog and put up a warning that there's no music content in here, and continue to do these, and I'll plop them up on my channel. But don't feel bad if you decide to skip them, in lieu of the videos I do where I do talk about music, or the videos that I put up the old out-of-print albums. I'll be back. I'm going to really try to do something at least once a week of some nature, just so I'm regular again. Whether it's a vlog, whether it's me talking about music in a shorter video. I'm going to try to get back in that mode. Okay, guys. I hope everybody's doing well. That's out there seeing this, and I'll be back soon. Take care.